Hi, good evening, everyone. Hopefully that break we just had got your blood flowing because numbers put a lot of people to sleep, so hopefully we can move right through some of this. Again, my name is Deanne Kinsey, and my responsibilities here at the parish lay in the areas of accounting and operations. And my goal, my commitment to you is to give accurate, understandable financial information to aid in whatever decision-making process we might be in. You can always direct any questions you have to me at the parish office whenever you have any kind of concern in accounting or operations. So, turning our attention to the finances of the parish. As Randy stated earlier, the annual report's available on our website, along with the audited financial statements covering 2017-2018. We also have some copies available at the parish office. Stop in if you want to have a nice thick document. First of all, the good news. We're meeting and balancing our operational budget. We have done that for a few years. We did that again this last year. Another piece of good news, we have no debt. We don't have any money taken out against a line of credit. In fact, we have some money in the bank. Mostly it's because we've received some large estates recently, and we also have all that money that you gave us to do the tuck pointing here in the spring for our 3 worship sites. So that money is in the bank, waiting for that work to happen, waiting for that bill so that we can pay it. We're still short about $50,000 on that goal for the tuck pointing to do that necessary work. So if you haven't, or even if you have, consider helping us finish up this fundraiser so that we can get started with the real meat of that work here as soon as possible in the spring. Thank you again to those who have given. So the not so good news, in summary, is that we're barely meeting a very conservative budget. We don't have any capital improvements in that budget. Remember, we spent a lot of time last year talking about all the capital improvements that were going to be necessary. But again, there's nothing built into the budget to cover it. Only the most basic of repairs and maintenance. That's the reason we had to do the tuck pointing fundraising, is so that any capital needs like that get covered. So right now, we've got the income for the annual report up on the slides. You should have seen that. It was mailed to you last month. I'll walk you through some of the numbers. First of all, the total revenue for last year was just over $4,600,000. 48% of that, $2,230,000, was from parish support, stewardship, your generous gifts of treasure that you've shared with the parish. We report the progress of that number, that component, weekly in our bulletin. It's nearly half of our revenue, so we monitor this number real closely. And so far this year, we're exactly on target. So far this fiscal year, not last year, but this year, we're within 1% of the budgeted amount. Again, thank you for your continued generosity. We're holding our own. So now that was the area in the blue. So the area in the red is donations. It makes up about 6% of our revenue, as opposed to our stewardship. These are the amounts that you specifically direct us where the money is supposed to be spent. So this is everything from when you gave us money for hymnals, when you gave us money for wish list items, for flowers, diocesan collections, disaster relief efforts, those kinds of things. That shows up in the donations category rather than the stewardship category. Another 6%, this is in the green area, is, sure I haven't lost my place. It's from wills and bequests. Our financial outlook would have looked vastly different if we hadn't gotten $270,000 in wills and bequests from our parishioners who've passed on. We're not always able to rely on getting that kind of money from estates every year, and we can't really count on it from year to year to balance our budget, but we are, again, grateful for those who remember us generously in this fashion. I ask you to consider remembering St. Francis of Assisi Parish in your will. You'd be leaving a legacy to the parish that reflects your connection to your parish family and your faith. Again, we can't do this right now without those numbers. The teal, orange, and purple segments make up almost a third of our revenue. They're our educational programs that include our religious ed, the day school tuition, the parental choice program numbers, monies that we receive from the state. Fundraising is shown in the lighter blue segment. It nets us about $230,000 also in income every year. This includes script program, the International Food Fair, raffles, that type of things. Those are fundraising efforts. I want to give one brief plug for our script initiative that's going on right now. Through the end of the month, Quick Trip has tripled the profit they're offering us on gift cards. We purchase them again at discounted rates, sell them to you at face value. So if you need $20 in gas, you use a script card, and the parish and school benefits, you've just earned us $3, just like that. It's for something you needed to buy anyway. The card's easy as this. See me after the meeting if you want to buy one. Give me a $20 bill, I'll give you a card. You can use it at the pump, you can use it inside. That's about as easy as it gets. $3, just exchanging 20 for 20. Back to the information we've got on hand here, though, is the pink segment on the pie chart is our miscellaneous income, and it includes things like investment income, our rental income, hot lunch, extended care programs, service organizations, those kinds of things. Again, it's still a big number, $230,000, but a small piece overall in our current operations. The one other thing we highlighted on the annual report when you got that last month was giving by way of an IRA transfer gift, or sometimes called an IRA charitable rollover. If you choose this method, your IRA distribution is given directly to the parish. It doesn't come through your hands. It doesn't count as income on your tax return, but you also don't count it as a charitable deduction on your tax return. We still, however, post it to your family account, and we send you an acknowledgement at the end of the year saying that, yes, we realize your family has given money to the parish in that way. But again, it's like not income to you, not a deduction to you, but the parish benefits. And I actually spoke with a financial advisor today on a parishioner who was giving us some money in that fashion. He was very high on those, and we're figuring out how to handle it the best way here in the parish. We're posting some forms on our website under that donate tab. So if you go to our website, go way over to the donate tab, and it'll assist you in the process. The biggest thing is you need to tell us in some fashion when you initiate an IRA transfer, because financial institutions don't have a good way of telling us where the money came from, who it came from. This financial advisor indicated that today to me, which is why he called me to tell me who that parishioner was, how much to expect. It's just, there's not a formal way that we know. We get a check in the mail and we're like, oh my gosh, who was the generous parishioner? So there's, again, a form that'll be on the website. Not quite sure if it's there quite yet, but it is one requesting your financial place to direct the funds to us with our federal ID numbers listed, and then another one, a letter telling us to expect that money in the mail or in a transfer, whatever way you choose to do it. So now if we go to the next slide, that one's going to be about the expenses. We see that we spent a total of $4,569,000 over the course of the last fiscal year. The pie chart is broken out into 4 functional areas. The youth education is that red section. It makes up 58% of our budget. It amounts to $2,650,000. Again, that's our religious ed, our Catholic school, our Roncalli Parish investment. All of those amount, again, make up 58% of our budget. Catholic ministry section is all the good works that's being done in the parish. All the stuff that the rest of the staff came up and told you that they're working on. I'm so proud of them. They did such a fantastic job all year long. They did a great job presenting it to you. But that's the Catholic ministry section for the most part. It includes music and liturgy expenses, all those programs that we offer. It's again 24% or $1,106,000 of our expense budget, and that's shown in the blue. The management and general functional area is the green color. It's 14% of our budget. It includes utilities, printing, postage, telephone, computers, internet, that kind of thing, and it's about $650,000. Fundraising is 4% of our budgeted expenses. It's shown in purple. That's $165,000. You know, even that sounds like a big number. I know it's a big number. We're a big parish. We're serving a large number of parishioners, and we're really trying to be good stewards of your dollars. But they are big numbers. So in the end, our audited statements report revenues exceeding expenses by $32,000. Again, had it not been for those wills and bequests that we received, we would have had a financial loss of $238,000. I can't stress enough how important that piece is to our overall operations. I don't have a slide for this, but another way I just want to quickly share with you that you can look at the numbers is by a functional type. In other words, we spent $3,175,000 on personnel-related expenses. 69% of our total budget is made up that way. We employ over 100 people in either some full-time or part-time capacity. About 2/3 of them are involved in the school. But again, $3 million for 100 people. 12% of our budget, or about $550,000, is for supplies for both the parish and the school, office stuff, liturgical things, classroom things, that kind of stuff. 7% of our dollars are used for diocesan assessments, supporting the cemetery, and other miscellaneous expenses. The remainder is spent on our buildings and the grounds, our utilities, our maintenance, our capital improvements. We got more to come on that later. We got special presenters just on that topic tonight. So we can see that the cost for paid staff, our human resources, our personnel, whatever you like to call it, for both the parish and school has a major impact on our operations. In that area, we're constantly assessing our needs, trying to modify or seek new ways to make our operations more efficient, more effective. Oftentimes, we result in restructuring that area, and we reduce hours here and there. So here are some of the changes from last year. If we want to advance the slide one. Father Jose, he was newly ordained on June 30th and started with the parish on July 15th. The diocese uses St. Francis as a training parish for those newly ordained priests, and we're grateful that they can consider us their first assignment, their first parish. And we've been blessed to be able to help the diocese train some of those new gentlemen. Dan Barris replaced Katrina Wellborn as a liturgical music coordinator. We moved that area from a full-time position to a part-time, half-time position. And we're currently in the process of reclassifying the musicians and the choir directors as employees instead of independent contractors. So there's a lot of movement going on in that area right now. Angela Schneider replaced Sarah Wilkie at the front desk. You're going to see Connie Heinzen up there too. She's focusing more on communication, connecting with parishioners in her efforts. And you're going to see numerous volunteers that we're using to help staff that area as well. We had a lot of big changes in our maintenance area this year. Jerry Frazina was our maintenance individual at the middle school at the Marshall site. He retired at the end of the year. was replaced by Tommy Blaszek, so he's in charge of that campus, all the maintenance and everything involved at that campus. Tom Corey was the custodian at that middle school. He did the cleaning there, and Rick Kerber took over from him in addition to the cleaning he does at the elementary school at the Waldo site. Bob Malick remains at the elementary school, the Waldo site, and he's heading up all the maintenance responsibilities at that site. Mike Miller, who was our facilities director, left. Mike Spade has stepped into a full-time role. He was part-time here at Grand. He stepped into a full-time role overseeing the big picture of the parish needs. In addition to his previous work here at the Grand, he also takes care of needs at the parish office and anything that might come up at the cemetery. With all those changes in the maintenance area, we probably reduced about a half-time position as we reorganized that area as well. The script area welcomed the return of Cindy Verge when Carrie Straczynski left. Angela's still there assisting part-time as well. And that area went from about 1.5 persons to 3/4 of a person. And again, we're utilizing a lot more volunteers in that area. We're selling script every day. So I tried to be a little more efficient in some of the things that we're doing in that area. And then earlier you heard Michelle speak, but a year ago she did start as the assistant at Calvary Cemetery, in addition to her religious ed coordinator position in the elementary school. I'm sorry, in the elementary levels. We hired Nicole Heyman as a financial specialist. Her role is almost like a liaison, bridging the information between parish and school, helping out in that area. The school's seen a lot of changes as well. It's flowing, it's fluctuating all the time depending what the needs are, but most notably I want to just bring up, we had 2 teachers, Kathy Ebert and Sarah Jansen, who retired after more than 30 years in our school system. Tremendous what they've given to our schools over the years. Huge thank you to all of those who give their talents, who've given them in the past, including in that Father Mark, of course, who moved on to the vocations role, the assistant role as vocations director. They have a big part in helping us become who we are today. We welcome the new hires. We're blessed. We just really are blessed. We have a wonderful, wonderful staff. So up next, we've got a discussion on the facilities cost analysis that I alluded to a couple of times. What does it cost to run our various sites? So I want
to take just a moment again just to highlight a few things here so that you grasp a couple things I want you to catch hold of. Parish personnel changes, because we reduced the music and the maintenance and the script, we've reduced almost like 2 full-time positions in there, saving us some money. When you go back and look at the income and expenses, again, we balanced. We have a small overage on that, but again, want to remind you that wills and bequests and income, in the fiscal year that we presented here, needed $270,000 to cover that. Now that sounds like a lot of money, except the year before it was $290,000, so it decreased. We're budgeted this year. We're in right now. We've budgeted for $100,000 in wills and bequests to cover this year's budget that we're currently in. So we're moving in a very good direction. I want you to see that and grasp that and know that we have still some more work to do with that in terms of looking how do we live within our means. Our operating budget shouldn't be supplemented by wills and bequests. We should be using those for other growth things and other things that we want to do in the parish. And so as we look at that and see that, we say, well, what are we doing with the other parts of the parish? How does all this come together? There are so many moving parts and so many numbers to catch, but we can kind of bring them together into smaller buckets and understand them. So we want to take a look at our cost analysis in a few items. I invite Kevin, take it away.
Hello, Kevin Wilkie. Last year I talked to you guys with our buildings and grounds report committee. We used really big numbers last year. Those numbers are still there, and you'll see them on the bottom of all of our slides as we start talking about that. After we finished the buildings and grounds last year, going through, seeing what deficits and what we needed to do to our buildings, we realized that there was kind of an aspect missing. We're missing that part of, was it cost month to month, year to year, just to keep our buildings open, paying for, we went through utilities, gas, water, electric, internet, insurance. This is one area that we kind of were surprised with some of our numbers, but that is just leading us to understand that there's more ways that we can start looking at our numbers and start figuring out maybe there's other ways where we can be cutting costs on some of our things. As you'll see with some of our numbers, I'll expand on that a little bit. We talked about, we added maintenance costs into this. Our maintenance, then we divided up how many hours they spend at each location, trying to get as accurate a numbers as we can. The team that we put together was myself, Jerry Van Gill, Deanne Kinsey, Pat Brandel, and then Mike Miller prior to him leaving his position with the diocese, or with the parish. We met several times, got a lot of numbers together. We tried to think of everything we possibly could so that when the question comes up, well, what about snow removal? Yes, we thought of snow removal. What about cutting grass? Some of that's done by volunteers, some of it isn't. We took all of that into account. The one thing I will tell you as we go through these, Calvary Cemetery is not included in this because they are their own entity, and we let them handle their stuff. I know for buildings and grounds, we had them included because as they do fall into the parish, that aspect would have covered what we, or would have been included in what we needed. But as far as their day-to-day, month-to-month budget, that's their own process. So we can go to the very next slide. We're going to start with the Waldo campus. I have a lot of slides. Most of them will go rather quickly. The first thing I want to talk about on Waldo is just the number of buildings that you may not even realize we have kind of divided out in here. Obviously the first three on the list are pretty simple: church, rectory, school. Okay, everyone knows what those are. Life Teen House, some people call that the convent. That's the building that's actually connected to school. What's listed as convent is the house that's on the back side of the parking lot. This is one of those areas we looked at and we said, the major cost here, $190 a year. You go, well, that's not a lot, but it's still $190 that we're paying to insure that. That has no electricity, it has no utilities going to it. So one of the things that we can look at in the future is why are we, we want to tear it down, why are we still insuring it? So simple things like that. We do cover the Boy Scout building, way in the back corner of the lot. Because we are their charter organization, we supply that building for them, we pay for the insurance for them right now. And then the Menasha lot, so directly across the street from the rectory, we have a lot. And you figure, how can that cost us money? Well, there's a garage on that lot, so we pay insurance on that garage. So again, see, we start finding all these places where we're spending money. We have to spend money on some of it, but there's some areas where we can start looking at. So Waldo Boulevard, just our yearly costs, comes up to a total of about $128,000 a year to cover those annual costs. That's just about $11,000 a month. Okay? And you'll see a recurring theme as I go through all of these sites here. We can go to Marshall. Marshall's a little bit easier. We just have the three buildings. The only thing I'll remind you of is the Marshall Rectory, for the vast majority of the year, sat completely empty. And it was used a couple of times for a month here or a couple of weeks there for storing things or people staying in the interim basis. But there's another building that we're paying utilities and we're paying insurance on that is sitting essentially empty. Marshall Street, we add that up, we're at $100,000 a year. So just under $8,500 a month for our Marshall site. See, we're going to go through these pretty Grand Avenue. So the site we are currently in, again, we have just our 3 buildings. This rectory is used, this is where Father Plyer lives. So notice that the cost for the rectory is a little bit higher than what Marshall Street was. This one comes up to a total of $50,000 a year, and the big difference there is now our school. Okay? On your sheets, we don't have to go back on the slideshow. The school alone on Marshall Street was $80,000. A lot of that is really high utilities because we are using that building a lot, of course, as a school. This building sits empty, yet we're still spending $27,000 a year because we still have to heat it. We can't let everything freeze. There's still things that take electricity. There's still utilities that are being used. The other thing is, if you don't recall from the last time I talked last year, a lot of our buildings have shared utilities. Okay? So there's a boiler system in the basement of the school, but that's what also heats the church. The rectory has its own heating system, but as we start looking at what are we going to do with our buildings, and I'll try not to take too much of Pat's thunder, but as we start looking at that, it's not as simple as just saying, well, we don't use the school, let's just get rid of it. Okay? How are we going to heat the church? The boiler system is in the school. So there's a lot, as we start deciding things, there's a lot of questions that start coming up and trying to figure out, well, where are the logistics of actually being able to do this? So that's the Grand Avenue site that, what I say, just about $50,000 a year, $5,000 a month. Okay, we can go to St. Boniface. The numbers are much smaller at St. Boniface. And I have kids, I hear really well, so I heard what was said, and I just chuckle, so that's okay. What I'll tell you about the school, notice the school's in parentheses of $166, that is profit. Okay? The Haven is currently in the school. We do charge them rent. Part of that rent and part of that agreement is that they pay to heat the church. Again, same system as here. One boiler heats the school and the church. I will tell you that that church is kept at 50 degrees all year, well, 50 degrees in the winter. It's as warm as we're going to get it. 50 degrees in a building is not good for a building. Buildings start to break down. Buildings are living things. When there's not movement, when there's not heat, when there's not stuff in it, it just starts to degrade even more. So we're at about $10,000 a year to pay for a church, a rectory, and a little profit from the school for buildings that are sitting there. They're not used. They're not currently in any condition to be used. I'm by no means telling you what we need to do, but this future planning, these are things we need to look at. Why are we spending money on buildings that aren't in any use or potential use? Let's see. Okay, I just wanted to check my notes there. So again, St. Boniface, costs us almost $1,000 a month for that one. The parish office, our next slide. This was the easiest slide for me to tally up. Pretty simple right there, $13,000 a year. Obviously, this building is used a lot. Okay? So $1,000 a month for mostly our utilities, and then of course our insurance on that building. One of the questions came up, what happened with the sale of this building? Well, that's obviously something that is still on the table, but also, how many times do we want to move our office? If we get a good selling price, absolutely. We'll move as many times as we need to. But it also isn't worth unloading it just to unload it and then have more problems down the line. So there, again, about $1,000 a month for our parish central office. Next slide, Michigan Avenue. This is our big money maker of all of our properties. This one makes us $3,243 a year. Okay, we currently own that and we rent it out as farmland. The only cost we have on that is we do pay property tax on that land. It's 32 acres. It is currently zoned agricultural. And I know everyone's first thought is, we're not for profit, we're a church, why do we have to pay insurance on that, or pay taxes on that? As soon as we rent it out, now we are making money on it, so they want the profit on that. I believe our yearly taxes are like $100 a year, so it doesn't cost us a whole lot, and the land is better used as agricultural right now, instead of having it sit and be all full of weeds. So that's our Michigan Avenue property. Our last slide then, see, I told you my slides would go nice and fast for us. Our last slide is our total costs. So $295,000 a year that we pay just to run and operate our buildings. Break that down, that's $25,000 a month that we're paying in utilities and insurance. Just to give you a little bit of a understanding, when we pass the collection plate around at Mass, we average about $11,000 a month. So in our collection plates, we don't even get enough to cover our utility costs. Buildings are expensive. Okay? There's another really big number right underneath that $13 million. That's from our buildings and grounds number last year. Okay? I can tell you, so if you remember from last year, that was 14.2 or something. That included Calvary, which I told you at the beginning, took that out. I'll tell you this number has changed already. Every year, you can add 3%, just because costs increase. So 3% on top of that, it's another $450,000. Let's wait another year. Now that 3% isn't $450,000, now it's $475,000. Wait another year, it's another $500,000. So the longer we wait, the further behind we fall. And the tuck pointing that we've started is a great start. And you can look around even this church. You look up in the corner of the choir loft, and you see all the paint that's peeling. It's because we have active water leaks. We're finding new ones, I hope not on a daily basis, but it happens. So the next step, which is what everyone's always wondering, what's the next step? Our first step was right here. We couldn't move forward until we figured out what we were doing with our schools. Once we get our schools figured out, now we can start figuring out what are we going to do with our buildings and our churches. So the next step isn't going to be easy. It's not going to be decisions that everybody likes, but they're decisions that are going to have to be made, like it or not. And all I'm doing, and all we are doing, is trying to give you as much information so that when a decision is made, you have the background of why we made the decisions that were made. So that's it for me. I will pass it on to Mr. Brandon.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for that insight information. Thank you also to Geraldine, Deanne, and Pat that helped work on those numbers and put them. There's lots that goes into those numbers. You can look at all of them and we can argue over them all day long. This should be here, this should be there. Look at the general sweep of what we're looking at, the general idea of what we're looking at. So we want to take all this information. We know what our buildings are costing us. We know what we need to lay out to really get them to prime condition. So what do we want to do with all that? Well, what do we need for our mission? Let's go back to that sense. What do we need for our mission? And then we should be rolling out and deciding the pieces from here. So to help us bring that in mind, Pat.
And actually, I should just let Kevin summarize because he goes much quicker and he gives you the bottom line anyway. So, but here's trying to bring all of this thing together. A year ago, today, in fact, provided you some updates on the start of planning, reminded you that we had done a parishioner survey now some time ago. We created the Building and Grounds Committee, mentioned to you the fact that the Michael Group had completed a a study for the Diocese of Green Bay regarding schools, and that is what started to launch the regional school. And then the Building and Grounds Committee, as Kevin just reported to you, came back to us with what all of our facilities needed for repair and maintenance. Today, you have heard about Alpha, you have heard about a Unity Mass and Assumption in the Park, and you have heard about a new columbarium and other activities that we're moving forward on. Come to think of it, you know, Alpha is the beginning, and new columbarium is kind of the, never mind. So then we,
Crucify it.
just a thought. All right, you also heard the regional school progress report on where we stand on the facilities cost analysis, and the part that is also going to be completed in the next, I would say, approximately 5 to 6 month period is the rest of the parish planning process, as with assistance from the Diocese of Green Bay. There are 3 teams, or 2 teams associated with that. The third team is actually everybody here. There's a core team that's being developed that can take a look at all the numbers and the data and the socio-demographic data that the diocese is going to have. We'll be creating the parish planning team, which will be made up of some members of the Vision 2020 group, plus a number of others, some of them possibly from this group. And the third team I want to mention is that last one, input. As we're going through this process over the next 5 to 6 months, as you gave us a little bit of an indication of a couple of minutes ago with the sort of questions you asked, contact us, contact me. I've got an email address, I won't put them all up here, but they're in the bulletin. I've got a phone number, you can drop me a line and so forth. Give us feedback as we keep going through this sort of thing. Because even in your questions, it helps provide us with guidance. We are going to complete this planning process this year. You're as tired of it as I am about waiting for this thing to finish up. Now, there were all sorts of reasons, there were changes made and everything else. But remember now, we are going to be bringing together 5 different pieces of this. We started with the Vision 2020, and we've got a lot of information, and that's a huge work product that puts us ahead of the game. We have the building and ground study from the standpoint of what each one of these sites would cost us to bring it back to the way it needs to be. We've got the facility cost analysis now that Kevin just reported out on the operating costs for each one of our buildings. We have now got the regional school plan put together, led by John Stelzer, from the standpoint of needing to know what we needed to do with our schools so we could move forward. And now we're going to bring it all together with this parish planning process. This will be done this year. The question and the answers that we deal with from the standpoint of the parish office and from the standpoint of St. Boniface and so forth is all of the stuff that we go through for the planning process, because we've got to get this out, we've got to put it together. And Kevin encapsulated it pretty well from the standpoint of said, when he talked about the central office, okay, maybe we could move it, but what happens if in 6 months we say, you know what, we should have moved it here, we should have done that. We should have done this thing with St. Boniface. We should have done this thing with Grand Avenue. We should have done this thing with that building. The point is, we all have to come together on this thing, and we're going to finish this thing off. We're going to have the meetings. We're going to get the input. And we're going to be able to move forward together as a unity, as a parish. So I would ask you to remember on this thing, you can file it up. The point is, we put together the foundation. We put together these building blocks, those sort of things that are up there. For the future of St. Francis of Assisi Parish, we are going to, and we will have answered the who, what, when, where, how of all of this. In a moment, we're going to talk about the why we do this. Because the same thing as in all good works, so much of it depends upon your intention and what you're trying to get at and the why of it. So, we're going to have this thing completed. We're going to go through it. There is going to be, and I ask you for another thing before I turn it back over to Father Doug. I know that we all have strong feelings about different sites and so forth, about different schools and what we've got to do. As we go through this, I ask you to think about healing and unity. We will have decisions made that people will be upset with. They have a right to be upset, but we need to be able to come together and still move forward as a unity, as a unified parish. We will need to help heal each other. Healing and unity. It's Christian, it's Catholic, it's what we need to do as we move forward. So with all of that, I turn it back over to Father Doug, because I can answer all these questions, but when we come back to the mission of St. Francis of Assisi Parish, that brings us back to why we do these things. Father Doug.
Good, thank you, Patrick. Tough decisions ahead. It's about coming deeper into this parish mission planning process and realizing that the hours of work, the years of work, and those boxes under there is what's feeding into this. And we're now in a position to be able to move forward on some decisions and some work as we go forward. I like Pat's analogy. Alpha kind of brings us as the on-ramp coming into life. Pause for Mass in the cemetery, and then rest out at the mausoleum at the cemetery over time. Well, this brings us to the part of getting back to our mission statement. And I want to call us to mind, especially the last line in our mission statement, ever-changing community. We're not where we were 20 years ago. We're not where we were 10 years ago. And by the year 2025, and 10 years from now, and however long from now, what do we want to be? What do we want to look like? We've got to spend more time looking forward to that and then saying, okay, with that in mind, what kind of programs, and we've got lots of programs and options going. What are the facilities? What do we need to make all this happen in life? And that's our challenge before us. What do we want to be? So as we close, first I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you to our presenters and our staff. Hope it's helpful to see who's on staff, because when you come to Mass in the weekend, you don't see a lot of those people. You don't see our principals in the school. You don't see some of the other ministry happening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this. Keep all this in prayer as we go forward, most importantly, so we can make wise and holy decisions and discernment as we step out into the world. I'm sure you have some questions. You have them tonight. The staff's available, the presenter is available to ask tonight. And as Patrick shared, information on the bulletin to contact us and to go forward with. And so we close with prayer. We'll go to the Litany of Saints and ask you to respond, pray for us. Holy Mary, Mother of God, Saint Joseph, Saint Boniface, Sacred Heart of Jesus, Saint Andrew, Saint Paul, Holy Innocents, Saint Francis Xavier, Our Lady of Good Help, Saint Francis and Saint Clara of Assisi, pray for us. Saint Francis de Sales and Saint Francis Cabrini, Saint John the 23rd and Saint Edith Stein, Saint John Bosco and Saint John Vianney, all holy men and women. And Almighty God bless you, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.